What's up, guys? Classy Metal here. I've got a video today that may make some of you happy. It is strictly dedicated to death metal. Before I get into that, I got to change gears just for a second. I have a giveaway going on my Facebook page for this channel. I'm giving away 3 black metal releases. I have Vesperian Sorrow with Psychotic Sculpture. That is the Transcending Records reissue. I have Grief and Bliss with their EP Endeavor and some atmospheric black metal. We have Valiant with a Moribund Destiny. As I said, the Facebook page for this channel will be linked in the description. If you haven't followed that, definitely go do so. Get in on this giveaway. I will be picking the winner this Friday on the 13th. So that out of the way, that will be the only time I mention black metal in this video. Everything else from here on out is going to be strictly death metal, aside from the very first album, which is a bit more uh, grindcore slash death grind. But after that, everything else is death metal. The first album that I'm going to show, I actually have no idea how this came to be in my possession. I have no idea whatsoever where it came from. I have a spot on a shelf in the corner. It's my biggest shelf in the room, and the bottom 3 sections of that shelf are completely empty. That's where I keep everything that comes in that's new. I have just stacks of stuff that I put there, and they stay there until I actually have time to go through them, listen to them, digest them, and actually do a video for them. And I was going through those stacks, getting stuff ready for future content for this channel, and I came across this album, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was thrown in as a freebie in a previous purchase and it's just something that I missed. I honestly, I don't know. Anyway, I threw it in the stereo and gave it a listen, and it was very different. I was kind of taken aback, and then I had to do some research on it. Then that made a little bit more sense. So, without further ado, what I'm talking about is the full length from Caninus or Caninus. I should know how to pronounce that. They pronounce it in the very first track in the intro, but now it's slipping my mind. With Now the Animals Have a Voice. This is vegan grindcore slash death grind with 2 actual pit bulls as the vocalist. It sounds exactly like I just described it. I mean, the musically, the musicianship on this is pretty run of the mill grindcore. It's performed, I mean, flawlessly, but it has the grooves and that type of stuff. It's pretty much what you expect from a grindcore slash death grind musicianship. The vocals, it's 2 actual dogs. Basil and Budgie, I believe, are the 2 pit bull names, and it is growls and barks throughout the entirety of the album. This is a side project of 2 members, I think, of Most Precious Blood, hardcore band out of New York. I said this is a side. Once the novelty of this release kind of wears itself thin, wears off, it becomes a little bit played. It's not something that's going to have a ton of uh, of just replay value. I mean, but for what it was an interesting listen. I was definitely taken aback when I first listened to it. I didn't know what in the world I'd been thrown in the stereo. It was listening to the dogs went wild. One of them actually scratched my finger earlier while this was playing. So yeah, I mean, for what it is, I mean, it's fun. Something that I'm gonna find myself returning to all that often. Probably not, but I think some of you might find that intriguing. I'm gonna list everything that I show in the description down below. So if you see something like that you want to go check out, you can get the album title and the artist and go look it up yourself and listen to it that way. But that was a definite interesting release. And as I said, I don't know where that came from. That's very very odd to me. I'm still kind of taken aback by that. The next one that I'm going to show is a death metal classic. It was originally released in 1994. I want to say this came out on Century Media Records back in 94. Not quite certain. This is the 2020 reissue through Transcending Records. This is Gorement with The Ending Quest. Fantastic old school Swedish death metal. I don't call albums perfect ever, really, by any means, but if I was going to, I just went way out of focus. If I was ever going to call an album perfect, especially an old school Swedish death metal album, this would probably take the cake on that. I mean, the riffs on this, it's if you have not heard this, you're definitely doing yourself a disservice, especially if you're into that old school death metal sound. This is something that I think is an essential part of any death metal collection. If you don't have original copy of this, definitely go to the Transcending Records website, grab yourself a copy of this reissue before they're gone, because this is definitely something that's deserving a spot in a collection. If you have not heard this, go just stop this video right now. Go listen to Gorement. You will not be disappointed. Once you hear those riffs, the originality in this release, and you realize that this came out all the way back in '94 and it's still holding weight like that today, you're going to want a copy. It is that good. Just an underground classic. I know some of the older folks like myself have probably already all heard that. There are some of you that watch my videos that may have not heard that. You may have overlooked that. Definitely do yourself a favor. Go check out Gorement. Mike over at Transcending also threw in a couple pins for me in that order. I have just the Transcending Records pin, and there's an actual Gorement pin in that as well. Like I said, I don't call albums perfect by any means ever, but if I was going to call an album perfect, a death metal album perfect, the Ending Quest would be as close to a perfect album. Not overly complex, not overly technical, just riffs, flawlessly executed, fantastic stuff. Next up, we have a release out of Illinois. This band out of Illinois, I guess. This came out in '93. It is the only full length from this band. It's one that was kind of overlooked for several years, and within the past, I'd say 2 to 3 years, it's kind of picked up steam. People are kind of going back, revisiting, reintroducing themselves to this release, and it's finally getting some of the attention that I think it originally deserved. It was overlooked quite a bit back in the day, and I think just the fact that it was the simplicity of this album kind of turned some people away. And I think the simplicity of this album is what makes it work. This is kind of a repurchase for me because this is an album that I did own at one point. Fortunately, I had to sell my original press when my wife was having surgeries and there were some things going on. Sometimes materialistic things like a media collection have to take a back seat to more important issues in life. I was hoping this was going to be an original press when I saw it come up for sale on eBay. I knew it was a very good price if it was an original press, but I'm about 99.9% positive this is a Russian boot. Talking about Morgue with Eroded Thoughts. Amazing, amazing death metal release out of Illinois. As I said, this came out in 1993. The fact that the liner notes and everything looks so flawless on this right now, with this having been released in '93, is pretty much a dead giveaway that this is a Russian boot. The Matrix, they did a good job as far as booting it. The sound quality is there. The CD, there might be a couple differences on that from memory. I have to do a little bit more research on this. Even the matrixing, the numbers are right, but the look of them is a little off, if that makes any sense whatsoever. This was released originally on Grindcore International. I think it is way past due for a modern day reissue. Hopefully somebody will get on the ball and do that soon. I would love to hear or see like some updated artwork and that type of stuff. But this is Morgue with Eroded Thoughts. If you haven't heard this one, this is another one. If you're into death metal, you like that old school death metal sound, that simplistic old school death metal sound, this is one that I think you'll enjoy. So definitely go check out Morgue with Eroded Thoughts. That is their only. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. That is the only full length that they ever released, unfortunately. Next up, we have a newer release. This one was released in 2017. This is the debut full length from Necrot, entitled Blood Offerings. This is a blistering death metal release out of Oakland, man. This is fantastic stuff. I enjoy the fact that they're coming out of the Bay Area, and they didn't go the deathcore route. There's so much deathcore and that type of stuff coming out of especially Oakland right now, and this is a band that focused mainly on just straightforward blistering death metal, and I can definitely appreciate and dig that. The glare is not going to do that artwork justice. I love that artwork. I know this is one that received quite a bit of attention when it came out. This was on Tank Crimes, is who released this. I know, especially I think that I received a shirt from Necrot through Metalhead Box, uh, probably well over a year ago. As I said, this is released. that garnered quite a bit of attention when it came out. I'm just kind of late to the ball game on actually picking myself up a physical copy. I know most of you that follow this channel have already heard of Necrot, probably already own and possess a CD copy of that album anyway. Next up, getting away from the simplistic style of death metal, we have a very complex album, especially for this band, and in their discography, it's probably one of the more complex albums in their discography. This one was released in 2000. This is Incantation with the Infernal Storm. Said this was released in 2000 on Relapse Records. Not the strongest release in the Incantation discography or the most memorable release in their discography, but it is a pretty strong. I enjoy it quite a bit. The drumming on this, man, is phenomenal, especially with its complex and the way that this album is structured. You have to give credit to the drumming in this because I mean it's just executed flawlessly. Very pretty good from Incantation. I don't think I've ever really heard a bad Incantation album. Pretty good stuff. The vocals are a little hit or miss on this release, but either way, fantastic stuff. It does have a little price tag sticker residue going on the jewel case on that, but pretty good stuff right there. Next up, we have another reissue. This was, I think, originally uh, released in 95, I think, 1995, and then the reissue came out in 2012. This is a Krisiun with a Black Forest Domain, more blistering death metal. This is out of Brazil, that South American blistering death metal style that has been so popular there for well, I guess 2 decades now. The teeth on this jewel case are a little busted, so I'm going to actually hold the disc up right there. It's just intense. I mean, that's if I had to pick one word for this album, I would call it intense. I mean, you know what you're getting through Krisiun. This is probably one of the stronger releases, in my opinion, in their whole discography, and just blistering, intense death metal out of Brazil. So definitely check that out if you have not done so. I have 2 CDs left, and that would be it for this video. The next one that I'm going to show came out in 2000. I remember listening to this back in high school. I actually owned a copy back in high school. That it was in a stack of CDs of mine that were stolen at one point. And I don't know what triggered my mind, and I got to thinking about that album. I was like, man, I need another copy of that. I really missed that. We have The Crown with Deathrace King. Kind of thrashy death metal. I've heard this actually described this album described as speed death metal. It's almost reminds me of that Beneath the Remains Sepultura. Uh, not not the actual music, but just the speed. Just that brutal thrash slash death metal. That brutal thrash that kind of blurs the lines into death metal. I think this one goes quite a bit farther into the death metal aspect of things as opposed to Sepultura. But fantastic stuff from The Crown. As I said, The Crown, Deathrace King, Swedish, another Swedish band. The Swedes, especially in the 90s, early 2000s, 90s, were just the worldwide leaders, I think, in death metal. And this one is probably my favorite release from The Crown. They've kind of gone into a mellow deathy uh, vibe at times, but this is just like blistering nonstop, 50 minutes just of nonstop death thrash. I mean, it doesn't. It's relentless. It's completely relentless. It's an exhausting listen. I'll put it that way. 50 minutes later, and you feel drained. The last one that I'm going to show is some death metal out of Belgium. I showed some Aborted in a couple of videos ago. Said I'm slowly trying to chip away at their discography. This is just another hole in that collection. Probably one of the weaker, if not the weakest, album in Aborted's discography. That's probably why I got it so cheap. I got this on eBay. This was released in 2008 on Century Media Records. This is Strychnine 213 from Aborted. As I said, it's probably looked on as their weakest. It's a very polarizing album for fans of Aborted. I didn't hate this album. It's not something that when I'm feeling the need to listen to Aborted, it's probably not going to be the first album that I grab of theirs, but it's a decent listen for what it is. I will find myself returning to this at some point and giving it another listen, but pretty good stuff right there. As I said, I'm going to link up, well, not the Facebook page. I will link that up so you can get in on that giveaway. And then in the description, I'm just going to list band name, album title for everything that I've just shown. That way, if you want to check something out for yourself, you can go do so. I'm pretty stoked to have some of this stuff in the collection. There are some classics there, and I'm probably going to spend the rest of this day spinning death metal. That's all I've got for today. So stay classy, stay metal. I still have 3 stacks of stuff for videos on deck, and I have some more stuff on the way. So the content is still going to be coming. I don't know when I'm going to get around. I'm fixing to start a pretty brutal work stint. I think I'm going to be going the next 9 days straight at work. So it might be a little bit of a break. I'll try to squeeze in a video at some point during that, but we'll see. So anyway, that's all I've got. Stay classy, stay metal, and I'll see you all soon. I promise.